Hey everyone, it's time for another story. Before we start, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any updates and comment on which manhwas you want to see here. Let's go. This is a world where animals and humans coexist. In this world, having a powerful and rare beast means everything. They can control the wind and rain and destroy both the sky and the earth. And at the peak of this world stands a young man named Su Liang, because the beast that favors him is the lunar butterfly, a rare butterfly that exists only in legends. Not only can it turn back time, but it can also reverse karma and live forever. And what's even more remarkable are the glowing crescents in his eyes shining dazzlingly, a beautiful sight to behold. The attachment, favor, and love of the lunar god can be seen in his eyes. He is someone sought after and admired by countless people in the world, the Lunar King. The story begins with our protagonist in his apartment, browsing on his computer. He remarks how incredible that young man is. With a legendary beast and a unique appearance, he stands at the top of the world and has millions of followers. And what's more amazing than that? Thinking more about it, the protagonist realizes there's something even more incredible. And that, in fact, is himself. Su Liang, the Lunar King. Yes, this young man is Su Liang. A few hours ago, he transmigrated from 21st century Earth into the world of beast tamers and received memory fragments from the original owner of his body. Because the invincible Lunar King accidentally rolled out of bed while sleeping, he fell and died for no reason. It would have been nice if he had transmigrated under better circumstances, but soon the protagonist asks the system to open the status window. Seeing his status, the protagonist realizes that his companion beast is a butterfly. He quickly becomes furious upon learning that the Lunar King's beast is a legendary lunar butterfly. Then his titles and possible future are revealed. However, the original owner was no fool. He truly believed he was immensely powerful. Self-esteem is everything, isn't it? He was convinced that the shining butterfly was the incarnation of a divine beast, and that it would reveal its true form in a moment of desperation. As long as you believe, it will happen. Except for the words spoken by the Lunar King. Even when facing an 8-star beast tamer, the Emperor Kanju, he showed no fear at all. Soon the protagonist says that if he hadn't looked at the illustration of the beast he owned, he really would have believed it. Then he decides to take a look at his beast first. Suddenly, a glowing blue butterfly appears in front of him. Finding the butterfly adorable, the protagonist wonders what he can do. So far, he can't even defeat the Academy's elites, and he thinks that without some kind of cheat, it will be impossible to surpass Emperor Kanju in 3 years. Right after mentioning cheats, the protagonist thinks he might have something. He remembers a mysterious thing in the original owner's memory. He doesn't know where it comes from, but he finds it strange that the original owner seemed to reject it completely. The name of this thing is the Lunar Book, a rather exotic name. Looking at the illustrations, the protagonist realizes how it works. When a beast touches the icon in reality, the icon activates. After collecting enough beasts, he knows he can roll for another one, like drawing a card in a game. Upon reaching the page of Supreme Ranked Creatures, the protagonist realizes the reason why the original owner rejected the book so much, because it denied his belief that he had the lunar butterfly. Obviously, the protagonist says it's no wonder, but soon he states that right there is the Lunar Beast Tamer Academy. Moon-type beasts are everywhere, so it's easy to find and collect them. Then the protagonist declares that his first step will be to save up enough to roll 10 times. Who knows, maybe he'll get the lunar butterfly. But he knows it is still too early to prepare for the battle 3 years from now. His top priority now is to stay out of sight and become stronger. So he puts on his coat and heads toward the advanced dormitory of the Moonlight Beast Taming Academy. In the dormitory, Bai Yuer, while feeding a small rabbit with grass, is scolded by Su Jing, who says that Bai is always feeding those low-ranking creatures and asks what she will do if those creatures become attached to her. Bai then tells Su Jing that of course she will not sign a contract with a low-ranking moon rabbit and that she is feeding them just for fun, purely for her own entertainment. Furious, Su Jing tells Bai that she is an elite of the academy, and if she is contaminated with the scent of useless creatures, she will not be able to attract powerful beasts. She claims that the Lunar King never touches common animals. Not to mention mid- and high-rank beasts, he won't even look at supreme-rank beasts. She insists that it must be because the moon butterfly hates the smell of inferior creatures. Soon, they notice someone approaching. When they turn around, they see the protagonist, the Lunar King. As he glances at the girls from the corner of his eye, they feel that his growing, oppressive gaze fills them with the need to submit completely. After looking at the girls, the protagonist is startled inside and wonders if that is a cat girl. But he quickly averts his gaze and asserts that the Lunar King should not have much contact with beasts. He swiftly leaves the area. Upon arriving at the Moon Pavilion, the protagonist realizes that with the number of low-rank beasts in the pavilion, if they are all unlocked, he should be able to buy 10 times, or even more if he wants. Upon entering the pavilion, the protagonist sees several floating lights moving toward him. When he touches one of them, the system displays that a new beast has been unlocked and the number of illuminated illustrations has increased. Then it shows a moon element, low-ranking moon, a juvenile moon fox, low-ranking moonlight, a fluorescent flower, low-ranking moonlight, a moon spirit bird, a shadow moon mouse, low-ranking moonlight, battle ability, shadow attack, and a glowing fish, low-ranking moon. All these little monsters gather around the protagonist. He is soon surprised to realize that the lunar book can also reveal specific information and battle abilities. He is pleased to see that things are happening just as he expected due to his cheat ability. As he approaches the suspicious door, all the small monsters move away from him. He immediately suspects that because the area is so cold, the low-level beasts are keeping their distance, and wonders if that territory belongs to a mid-level beast. Upon opening the door, the protagonist finds a white deer lying in the center of the room, which is adorned with shining chandeliers and a magnificent image of the moon. As he approaches, the protagonist notices a plaque detailing all the information about the deer. He soon realizes it is a white-flowered deer, a mid-level moon-type beast, an extremely beautiful being. The white-flowered deer has the most beautiful appearance among mid-level animals. Although they are hard to find, they are gentle, enjoy eating grass, and especially love basking in the moonlight. Due to their characteristics, they are extremely selective in choosing mates and are now exceedingly rare. Only the palace of the lunar gods still maintains breeding grounds for the true white-flowered deer. In the back, two young men enter the Moon Pavilion and wonder if it isn't open to the public for free. They question how so much money can be spent to support a mid-ranking beast and claim they have never seen other animals being treated this way. The other young man agrees, saying that perhaps it is because of its appearance. He then remarks that the white-flowered deer is very beautiful, and asks if he thinks they could obtain it. Soon, while one of the young men says that maybe some rich people just want to show off, he claims he doesn't want to become a target. Just then, the deer spits on him, causing both of them to run away immediately, wondering if that deer can understand their words. The other young man says he heard that some mid-level beasts with high intelligence are similar to humans, but either way, they should get out of there now. If they stay, things could go bad. As that deer rises from its cozy spot, the protagonist thinks about how impressive it looks, how its words seem somewhat understandable, and finally he realizes where all those mixed-blood beasts come from. As the deer stares directly into the protagonist's eyes, it steps even closer. He had better look. Then the protagonist summons the lunar book. Upon opening it, he discovers that a new beast has been unlocked and the number of illuminated illustrations has increased. He wonders how this is possible and soon realizes that this deer is not a mid-level white-flowered deer, but a supreme beast capable of destroying a kingdom. And he knows that a supreme beast is the highest-ranking creature, the master that rules over all animals. The mere pressure they emit is enough to shock weak creatures to death, and if they go berserk, hundreds of kilometers will be wiped out. So he wonders why this terrifying walking nuclear bomb has appeared in the academy, claiming that the entire school could collapse at any moment, which isn't exactly surprising. Trying to calm himself, the protagonist thinks that since the supreme rank beast can stay there peacefully, maybe it's docile and the school knows it won't harm others. Otherwise, those two students wouldn't have been let off with just spit in their faces, but the protagonist knows he can't completely rule out the possibility that it's just pretending to be kind. The Lunar King thinks that, just like a protagonist in an action novel, even though it clearly has overwhelming strength, the deer must hide it and pretend to be weak to get what it wants. Unlike him, who truly got the short end of the stick, so weak and defenseless, only able to rely on his image to scare people. As he looks at the deer's information card, the protagonist notices that it is also approaching to take a look. Soon, the protagonist realizes that the deer also knows its information card is wrong, that he notices that the deer is getting into an attack stance and wonders if it's because he stayed in the room too long and now the deer thinks its identity might have been exposed. Trying to disguise his nervousness, the protagonist says that the mid-level white-flowered deer is truly too beautiful, so much so that he was mesmerized and couldn't move for a while. Extremely frightened, the protagonist tells himself that it doesn't matter why this fierce beast is there. The most important thing is that he doesn't become its enemy, a very crucial thing, by the way. After passing through the door, the protagonist pretends to stumble upon something, closes the deer's room door, and immediately sprints away. From the perspective of the white-flowered deer, it thinks about the protagonist's eyes and wonders who exactly he is. Then it returns to its bed and pulls out his cell phone from beneath all those fabrics. Soon, it does a quick search to find out who the protagonist is and is shocked to discover that he is the Lunar King. In the dormitories of the Beast Taming Academy, the protagonist says he was just nearby, and speaking of which, he wonders how they can be so unethical. He claims that this is no different from putting a T-Rex in a zoo. Not to mention that, although the white flower deer looks like that, it can probably kill several T-Rexes with just 1 foot. And he claims that if he had encountered that moon hunter in the wild, he would have definitely died. But after all, only another supreme rank beast can match other supreme ranks. And he says that his beast is at the very lowest tier among the weakest, if not for his cheats. Speaking of cheats, just now in the Moon Pavilion, that icon was able to show not only the type of beast, but also the abilities it possesses. Basically, a whole display case. So the protagonist understands that this doesn't mean he will be able to know all the abilities of the beasts he has touched. Knowing that everything is in the palm of his hands, he goes outside in search of a low-level beast to confirm this again. Outside, the protagonist comes across that little rabbit he had seen earlier in the morning. As he approaches it, he says it's strange. According to the characteristics of beasts in this world, moon-type beasts usually become aggressive under it. Their strength and physique naturally increase to a higher level. He wonders why this rabbit doesn't react to the moonlight. Upon seeing its true form, the protagonist admires its calm yet dominant posture. He claims that he might have encountered a boss even more powerful than a supreme rank beast, something almost impossible to happen. Trying to disguise his intent to touch the rabbit, the protagonist claims that this is the perfect moment. He will use the Lunar Book's encyclopedia function to reveal its true nature. Managing to pet the rabbit, the Lunar Book reveals that it is a moon rabbit, lost lunar physique. The Lunar Book explains that the lost lunar physique is a genetic defect caused by congenital weakness, preventing it from being strengthened by absorbing moonlight on ordinary nights. Only on a full moon night, when the moon is strongest, can it have combat power. The protagonist wonders if that makes it even weaker than the lowest-ranked beast. Lamenting, he says that he thought encounters like this would never happen twice. Watching him from a distance, Bayur drops her phone in shock as she wonders if the protagonist is really petting a low-ranking moonlight rabbit. Back in the dormitory, Sujing asks Bai if she has finally returned. Without answering, Bai asks what happened. Then Bai asks Jing if she thinks there's a chance, just a small chance, that the protagonist actually likes small animals. Not understanding the question, Jing asks if Bai lost her brain in class. Trying to play it off, Bai says she was just joking and goes to her room. Arriving in her room, Bai could never have imagined that the invincible Lunar King could actually show such a gentle expression, and she wonders how this side of him is known only to her. Returning to his dorm, the protagonist thinks that although he was seen doing something out of character, thinking about it, he admits that it was kind of cute. Maybe the girls who love reading this type of romance would adore it. Exhausted after all the events of the night, the protagonist just wants to sleep well now. Totally understandable. Opening his room door, the protagonist comes across a suspicious-looking woman in the corner of his room. Realizing she doesn't have a human appearance, he wonders if she is a humanoid beast. Feeling the oppressive aura as she approaches, the protagonist notices that she is stronger than the moon chaser. So scared that he can't even move, he realizes that the terrifying aura she exudes is beyond comprehension. Then the woman kneels before the protagonist and says she greets the Lunar King and the Lunar God. For a moment, the protagonist thinks he recognizes her, and in the memories of the original body's owner, she should be one of the 4 moons in the dual moon order. But who exactly? After a few seconds of silence, the woman thinks, as expected of the Lunar King, the strongest beast tamer in the world, a living legend. Even his silence is so sacred and dignified. Trying to hide the fact that he doesn't fully remember her, the protagonist asks what she wants. An actor worthy of a Golden Globe. She then reports that, according to the Central Region's Believers investigation, recently the remnants of the Black Moon Order have been frequently active in the Central Region, especially in close contact with beast tamers in the Lunar God's palace. Upon hearing this, the protagonist kneels with his back to the woman. She calls out to him, asking what he is doing. Soon he asks her to wait and say nothing. He claims it's better if she really doesn't say anything because now he is remembering. After secretly researching on his phone what the Black Moon Order is, the protagonist gathers information that the Black Moon Order is a moonlight-type faction that was once stationed in the northern region. They worship the legendary gods of the Black Moon Death Palace and possess the strange ability to darken the moon for several days. 3 years ago, they had a direct conflict with the newly ascended Dual Moon Order and were instantly destroyed on the night of a full moon. After recalling this, the protagonist thinks that it wasn't because he forgot, but because the order was too weak, and the original owner of his body didn't even bother to remember them. That woman then says that the Black Moon Order is naturally not a cause for concern, but if a Lunar God Palace is also involved, then the nature of the matter changes. it would now be on another level. Upon hearing about the Lunar God Palace, the protagonist knows that, unlike others, the Lunar God Palace is truly the ruler of the central continent, uniting the world for thousands of years with legendary beasts. Although its thousand-year reign has weakened over time, its position was shaken by the Dual Moon Order in just 3 years. That woman soon tells the protagonist that the 4 moons intend to act together. Even if the Lunar God Palace initiates a direct war, they can still retreat intact. But if that happens, there would be no one left to protect the protagonist. And so, her master sent her to ask for his opinion. The protagonist tells her to go ahead, that it doesn't matter to him, as long as he is under the moonlight. Agreeing with him, that woman cannot believe she had the chance to hear that famous quote in person. She exclaims that as long as the Lunar King is favored by the lunar butterfly, no one in the world can touch him, claiming that he is the most dazzling moonlight. Another episode of self-esteem. After the woman leaves his room, the protagonist says that he can't take it anymore, that it was so cringe, that he barely stopped himself from slapping his own face. But he knows that, in reality, the original owner of his body often said comforting phrases for no reason at all. And every time, those words were misinterpreted by his followers, even when they were actually just meaningless nonsense. Things like, "The moon favors me. I can feel the presence of the lunar god. As long as I am under the moonlight, the moon will rise. The moon is really round," or "the moon is very bright." All of the above are excerpts from the words spoken by the Lunar King. Thinking about what to do next, the protagonist considers the Lunar God Palace and realizes that he just transmigrated here and there are already so many troublesome things. But although for the Lunar King, today's Lunar God Palace is no longer a concern, things would be different if he had the lunar butterfly. And right now, he was just playing cool for fun, but now he has no bodyguards. If he ends up in danger, the strongest Lunar King in the world will die in the worst way possible. After remembering that he still has the cheat that allows him to draw rewards, he picks up the lunar book and says that after making contact with so many beasts at the Moon Pavilion, he should have enough to draw once. Seeing that he can actually draw now, the Geisha system shows that there is a chance to summon any moonlight-type beast of quality. Upon signing a contract, the beast will automatically be sent to the beast enclosure. If the protagonist is not satisfied, he can choose to return the beast and be rewarded in the form of beast strength value, so he won't leave empty-handed. Then the protagonist says that this means if he doesn't like the beast he gets, he can cancel the contract and earn some experience points, claiming that this is really good. He quickly realizes that now is not the time to think about those things. His top priority is ensuring his survival, and if by some chance he manages to get a supreme rank beast, then there's nothing left to fear. Praying to all metaphysical gods, the protagonist pleads, "Please." He says it's not easy for an ordinary boy to survive. He begs once again, "Please save this child." Then he initiates the exchange. As the book carries out its task, it announces that a new beast has been unlocked, and the number of illuminated illustrations has increased. And the beast the protagonist received is a moon shadow translucent armadillo. High level. Moon. Battle abilities. Moon scale. Conceal. The protagonist quickly realizes that this is a high-ranked support-type beast with 2 battle abilities that are quite rare. He wonders if his luck seems really good. He thinks that if he were a normal beast tamer, obtaining such a rare and high-ranked beast would be a miracle, which isn't far from the truth. But for Su Liang, the leader of the Dual Moon Order and the Lunar King, a mere translucent moon shadow cannot change anything. He says that the crisis he is facing now cannot be solved by the power of a high-level beast, so the protagonist cancels the contract. Upon canceling the contract, the translucent moon shadow is returned, and the beast's power value is given as compensation. Seeing such generous compensation, the protagonist notes that he will soon become a 2-star beast tamer, but even so, he is not happy at all. He thinks that the original owner of the body had many chances to sign a contract with supreme beasts in the Dual Moon Order, but since he believed he had the lunar butterfly, he completely ignored the rest, and he wonders how the original owner of the body suddenly ended up in this situation. Lying on his bed, the protagonist realizes that even if the high-ranking beast cannot solve the root of the problem, it is still better than the shining butterfly, which has no combat power. If he really gets into trouble, a high-level beast can at least handle the situation. And he questions why he immediately returned the high-ranking beast. Then he starts to think that his personality is being influenced by the original owner of the body. Finding it absurd, he claims that there is still a difference. At the very least, he is not blindly believing that the lunar butterfly is real. A wise choice. He decides that next time he gets a high-ranking beast, he will make sure to sign a contract with it. And tomorrow he will return to the Moon Pavilion to gather some points and experience. After all, there are still many beasts the protagonist has not collected. Then he suddenly thinks about that white flower deer. No, it should be the Moon Hunter. and he wonders if he can lure it away with some good treats. With that thought, the protagonist falls asleep. The next day, after waking up, the white flower deer asks what is happening and where its things are, and why were they taken apart. After hearing someone say that it is awake, the deer looks back and sees a woman brushing its fur. The woman then says that once the deer reaches the lunar god's palace, it will live a much better life than here. She adds that the lunar god's palace messengers will come to pick it up soon, and she warns the deer not to be troublesome in the future and to listen to its new caretaker. A word to the wise. Hearing this, the deer cannot believe that it has been sold to the lunar god's palace. As they arrive to pick up the deer, the beast tamers from the lunar god's palace are seen by some students who wonder if they are from the dominant force of the central continent, why they are there, and if it is because of the lunar king. One of the beast tamers says she heard that the lunar king was training there and thought it was some kind of treasure land. But it turns out it's just a bunch of kids. How hilarious. Then the second beast tamer tells her not to cause trouble, reminding her that they only came for the white deer this time, and that she should never overstep, especially when it comes to the lunar king and the dual moon order. She responds that she understands and that she also doesn't want to cause problems. Then they confirm that they only need to take the white flower deer, right? So those beast tamers are welcomed by King He, the owner of the Moon Pavilion, and she wishes a warm welcome to the two beast tamers who traveled a lot. With a kind of choral, those beast tamers say together that the moon will not fall because the night is eternal, making King He realize that the two still have the same arrogant attitude. And she claims that the era when the lunar god palace was superior to all living beings is over. What was sweet, son, is over. King He says that there's no time to waste and calls the two beast tamers to see the white flower deer. One of the tamers says it's not necessary and asks King He if they've already seen its online appearance. Soon, the other tamer says to King that they paid 10 times the price and asks her to bring the deer directly to them and not delay. Finding it strange the amount that beast tamers wish to pay, King He knows that the white flower deer is now on the brink of extinction due to the demand for its mates. So although it is a medium-level beast, its value is already comparable to a high-level beast, not to mention the fact that this white flower deer is of incomparable quality. Since they came all the way there and offered such a high price, it's obvious that they are determined to buy it. Why doesn't King He take the opportunity to? Soon King He says that what those two don't know is that this white flower deer is a direct descendant of the beast that the original founder of her pavilion had. And that's why they are giving it the luxury treatment of a supreme-class beast. And she says that if it's only 10 times the price, the resources spent by her pavilion over the years cannot be recovered. One of the tamers says, so what if it's a direct descendant of any beast? In the end, it's just a medium-class beast, isn't it? And the luxury treatment of a supreme beast. With such a terrible place, she thinks King He still hasn't seen the real thing. So the second tamer tells the first one to shut up, silence the poor thing. Soon, she asks if 20 times is enough, startling the first tamer and hypnotizing King He. The first tamer asks what the other is saying and says that 20 times the price is excellent and far beyond the budget. That tamer knows that her beast, Voice of the Moon, is an extremely rare high-level species and has the special ability to avoid disasters and foresee dangers. However, from now on, the Voice of the Moon is in a state of extreme mania, claiming that it seems something bad is about to happen. And anyway, that is not the territory of the lunar god palace, even if the price is doubled, as long as they can hurry up and leave with the white flower deer. After feeling a presence with a terrible pressure that could crush people, the tamer claims that someone is there, and this person is none other than the Lunar King. Soon, she wonders why the Lunar King would go to the Moon Pavilion, and doesn't know what they should do now. Got lost. Frightened by the protagonist's presence, one of the tamers realizes that the second tamer's mental sanity has been completely suppressed by the Lunar King. Soon, she asks if the other can hear her, and tells her to lower her head quickly and not look into the protagonist's eyes. After falling into her sister's arms, the tamer asks if she just saw the eyes of the Lunar King. As they approach the tamers, they lower their heads to him as he gets closer. That tamer feels that indifferent attitude and that dominance that completely overwhelms her world. She cannot lift her head. It's as if there were a real god inside her body. Soon, the protagonist realizes that those two are from the lunar god palace and wonders why they are there, and is curious to know. But his current identity is directly opposed to the leader of the lunar god palace, and there's no way for him to talk to them on his own initiative. Has to hold back for now. Soon, one of the tamers questions the other about why the Lunar King is looking at them, and tells her not to answer, that he's in a bad mood now and wants to kill them right away, and begs someone to save her, asking for someone to go there and say something, claiming that it's painful to be there doing nothing. So King He goes to the protagonist and introduces herself as King He, the owner of the Moon Pavilion, and she tells the protagonist that it is the greatest honor to see his face in person, and that actually 3 months ago she joined the Order of the Dual Moons. Then King, he says that those two beast tamers are messengers from the lunar god Palace and are there to buy a medium-rank beast. It's the white flower deer that the protagonist had seen yesterday, and she says that since the appearance of the deer is so perfect, even the lunar god Palace can't resist buying it at a high price. Soon the protagonist realizes that it's that moon hunter, and he realizes that the reason for such luxurious treatment was only because of his bloodline, and says that he doesn't believe that anyone except him knows the true identity of the moon hunter, and says that this is not something that can be bought with money alone, and says that there's no way he will let the Moon Pavilion sell a supreme-ranked beast to the Lunar God Palace. Soon the protagonist asks the two tamers to return, and claims that this place is not for people like them, and says that the moon is about to fall. Kidding Heat, not understanding, thinks it's broad daylight and wonders where the moon is. Then those tamers wonder what the protagonist just said, and if it's really that the moon is about to fall. Not something very normal to hear. And they think that if common people say that, it's probably just a meaningless statement. But the person who said it, considering the protagonist, the strongest lunar king in the world, so the meaning behind that phrase could be an unprecedented disaster for the lunar god Palace. Stammering, trying to respond to the protagonist, one of the tamers says that the moon won't fall like, oh. Then she's interrupted by a student who says that she really dared to answer the lunar king. Soon the protagonist looks into the eyes of that tamer, making her tremble with fear, causing her to fall to her knees and into the arms of the second tamer. Then she tells her to forget about the white flower deer, that this matter has already gone far beyond what they can resolve, and claims that they should return to the lunar god Palace immediately and report the lunar king's words to the princess. Seeing those tamers leave, Hingi wonders if their dull moon should have fallen long ago, and that the real moon is eternally sleeping in Su Liang's eyes, the lunar king. Inside, the protagonist claims that it was close, and thank God the youngest messenger stammered, or else he wouldn't even know how to respond. The protagonist doesn't even know if he was exposed, but he already said all that. The lunar god Palace probably doesn't want the white flower deer anymore, right? At least theoretically. At the deer's location, some staff are removing their items while it bites the shirt of one of the employees, who soon make two staff wonder what's going on with her today, and says that she's never seen the deer like this. She's usually very obedient. The employee claims that it must be because she doesn't want to leave her current caretaker and move to another. The employee hugs Aya and tells her not to worry. Even though she's at the Lunar God Palace, she'll visit her frequently, and asks her to be a good girl and says she is packing her things for the trip. While messing with Aya's sleeping area, the employee comes across some items, such as a mirror, food, cell phone, magazine, and a stuffed doll. Soon the employee wonders if animals really like that kind of thing. While picking up Aya's cell phone to check it more closely, the employee asks if someone threw that there, and soon goes on the internet to do some research. From a distance, Aya sees the employee messing with her search history and says that it will end up being exposed, and to protect her search history, Aya says that she prefers to become a demon. So she quickly lets go of the other employee's shirt and headbutts the one who was messing with her phone, causing the employee to fall onto her bed and her phone to fly into the hands of the protagonist. Too calculated, huh? So the protagonist comes across a story called The Beast Tamer Emperor, chapter 106. While reading it, the protagonist says that he must also mention that Aya managed to catch his interest. Totally embarrassed, Aya hides behind her bed while the protagonist enters her old room. Soon the protagonist says that the negotiation with the Lunar God Palace has been cancelled, and that they must all leave immediately. Later, the Order of the Dual Moons will send someone to negotiate the purchase of the Moon Pavilion. This makes the employees wonder, buy the Moon Pavilion? Their original goal was to negotiate the purchase today, but after all, with the Moon Pavilion as a cover, he could gather a large number of moon-type beasts for his collection. But who would have thought that he almost lost his supreme beast right in front of him? So the protagonist thinks that to be on the safe side, it's better to make a tactical retreat. An intelligent strategy. From atop Aya's bed, the employee says that she didn't expect the protagonist to announce the cancellation of the negotiation, and wonders if he had already met with the Lunar God Palace's messengers, and says she really wants to know what happened right now. An employee says that she heard it was canceled from one side. Another employee says that it was very domineering, as expected from the Lunar King. Yet another employee says that this isn't the same as waging war with the Lunar God Palace, right? And asks if they'll be supported by the Order of the Dual Moons, right? The employee on Aya's bed says that she's more curious about the phone she found, and wonders what was on it that could have made the Lunar King show that kind of expression. Soon, Aya comes out from behind the bed, grabs her phone with her mouth, and runs immediately out of there, going to look for the protagonist, telling Aya not to run around there. That employee wonders what's going on with her today and claims that maybe it's her rebellious phase. While trying to catch up with the protagonist, Aya says that he not only saw her true identity, but he also saw her search history, and says she definitely can't let him leave the Moon Pavilion or she won't be able to live on that planet anymore. A small detail, you know. Upon reaching the protagonist, Aya shouts for him to stop immediately. After the protagonist turns around, Aya asks him if he's already seen everything, right? Wondering if that voice really belongs to a girl, the protagonist thinks it's no surprise that she was reading those kinds of novels. Soon, Aya tells the protagonist that if he dares reveal her secret, she will never let him go. Remaining silent, Aya wonders if she succeeded in her threat and wonders if the protagonist is scared now. Soon, he offers his condolences and says that sometimes having your dark past revealed is also a way of saying goodbye to your past self. Aya is completely speechless at the protagonist's words. Then the protagonist tells Aya that she managed to capture his interest. Spitting blood from embarrassment, Aya begs the protagonist to shut up and not say that. Stammering, she tells the protagonist not to think that she's afraid of him just because he's the Lunar King. At least she's got courage. And tells the protagonist that if he tells anyone about her identity and those lines, she will immediately leave the Moon Pavilion, run to his house, knock him down, and step on him until the protagonist becomes a bloody mess. Surprised, the protagonist claims that this is a sixth sense skill exclusive to a supreme beast. The protagonist then responds to Aya, saying to see it, in other words, leaving her completely confused, and says that as long as when the protagonist calls her name when she's nearby, she'll immediately come to his side, right? Quickly, Aya agrees. But then she quickly doesn't understand what she herself just said. Did she agree? Then the protagonist says that they're settled, and if he calls her and Aya doesn't appear, he'll tell their secret to everyone. Aya then says that it's fine. Soon the protagonist bows and says it's better for her to remember that and that he's leaving now. She asks the protagonist to wait and gives him a piece of advice. Then she tells him to be careful with the full moon. Not giving much importance, the protagonist says it's fine and leaves. Thinking about the sentence the protagonist had said, Aya says that those words were very similar to a different kind of confession. It's like a meeting with the main male lead in a romance. Outside, the protagonist wonders how he really managed to coerce a supreme rank beast just now. He thinks that he only wanted to tease her because she seems so funny, but those words came out unintentionally. After all, according to the scenario, once the beast tamer and the beast sign a contract, they have to stick with each other until death, and saying that as a confession isn't wrong either. A rather strict agreement, but okay. And he thinks that if he really made her angry, he'd probably be dead by now. This means she really doesn't want her search history exposed. It's surprisingly cute now that he thinks about it. But soon the protagonist catches himself thinking, but what did Aya mean about being careful with the full moon? And saying that to the Lunar King? It seems a bit strange. Looking at the lunar book, the protagonist says that now he doesn't have any bodyguards. If he's really in danger, it's better to strengthen his team just in case. That same night, at the Lunar God Palace. Lunar God Palace. 10 princess pillars. The 10 beast tamers at the top of the Lunar God Palace are unknown, but all are said to be extremely beautiful women. A beautiful detail. The moon is about to fall. After telling everything that happened, the fourth princess asks if the protagonist really said that. The kneeling beast tamers confirm that yes. Soon the fourth princess says that the Lunar King's words really remind her. The fourth princess remembers that the full moon's timing is different in the last season, so she tells them not to forget to adjust their clocks. Soon the princesses start arguing, claiming that the fourth princess is wrong. One of the princesses says that this isn't good, and says that it's impossible for someone like the Lunar King to interact with low-class beasts. His appearance at the Moon Pavilion is simply irrational. Therefore, she thinks there must be something at the Moon Pavilion that caught his attention, and it's very likely to be a monarch. One of the princesses asks that princess if she's really talking about a monarch, and claims that if the Lunar King can control a monarch-ranked creature then. Apparently, a man responds that this is true. This means that the god sleeping inside the Lunar King is about to awaken. And if the legend awakens, the Lunar God Palace may no longer have the strength to resist. Understandable. Soon, they draw the fourth princess's attention and ask her if she's really willing to cooperate with them. Then the fourth princess says, what if the Lunar King has signed a contract with a monarch-ranked beast? Do they still think they have a chance to win, believers of the Black Moon? Soon they respond, what? Did you say monarch rank? Soon, everyone runs out of there. Then the fourth princess asks where they went and questions if they're all afraid now. Soon, a man asks to speak with her. Looking down, the fourth princess meets a man who says that in this world, the Lunar King isn't the only one favored by the moonlight. Recently, after the Moon King bought the Moon Pavilion, he sent his followers to search for moon beasts and transport them to the Beast Academy, which plunged the entire northern region into a state of panic, with all the forces in the region in a state of fear and unrest. Some people think that this is the way the Lunar King gets more powerful by eating smaller animals to replenish his energy. There are even rumors that this is a sign that the spirit living inside the Lunar King is about to awaken. Then things get crazy. Because of all the rumors and speculations, the situation in the northern region has been turbulent, and everyone's in panic. However, the Lunar King Su Liang, who is at the center of the storm, is currently. Then the system says that more pets have been unlocked, and the number of illuminated icons has increased. Showing the protagonist several beast options, the protagonist says that he already got a high-level pet in a single draw at least once before, but this time he only got a high-level pet in 5 draws. He claims that despite the help from the Twin Moon Pavilion, 2 to 3 days is still too long, and it's difficult to save up for 5 consecutive draws. So the protagonist thinks that low and medium-ranked pets can't be contracted, so they're useless except for collecting and exchanging pet points. As for this high-ranked pet, the protagonist says that although he said he would sign a contract if he got a high-level one, that Moon in the Lakes seems to be the support type, so it doesn't seem like it would be of much help. Not to mention the fact that the original owner doesn't seem to have this name in memory, and he wonders, I guess it's just a very obscure pet, right? So he goes searching on the internet. Best place to research, sometimes it's actually. Searching for Moon in the Lake, a protagonist finds no results on his research. So he thinks, how is it possible that there's still a pet beast that can't be found in the Beast Encyclopedia nowadays? So now that the protagonist has unlocked it, he's sure he can check it in the Lunar Book catalog, right? Quickly, he finds something about what he's looking for. And there he finds all the information about Moon in the Lake. It says, Moon in the Lake, high rank, lunar. It appeared once 13,000 years ago as a mutant pet. It was automatically detected and included in the Moon Book, but later became extinct due to its inability to reproduce. Its ancestral lineage is unknown. Battle skill 1 sinking. An innate talent that absorbs all shocks and fluctuations from the surroundings and when reaching its limit explodes and perishes. Note, a pet that has signed a contract with a beast master will be resurrected after some time, which is one of the most important reasons why humans who were once weak are now able to coexist with their pets. Seeing that it's been 13,000 years, the protagonist wonders if this isn't older than the history of the Lunar God Palace, and soon says that it's no surprise he can't find any information about Moon in the Lake on the internet. Turns out it's not a creature of this era. Something's not right here. Soon the protagonist thinks about what he said, not a creature of his era, and he thinks that the main reason he didn't want to contract a high-level pet is because he was afraid it would be recognized as it doesn't fit the identity of the world's strongest beast master. But he wonders if it's a high-level pet that no one knows. Looking at the book, the protagonist claims that since the existence of Moon in the Lake was lost, it's highly unlikely that anyone will discover its true identity. Moreover, its ability to ward off unexpected threats imperceptibly, although without the ability to fight, suits its current role. Then the protagonist emerges in a parallel world and signs the contract with the Moon in the Lake. Soon that bright butterfly is called back. The protagonist is then surrounded by white smoke and soon asks if that's the Moon in the Lake. It was looking quite a lot like it. And it says that that mysterious feeling of vicissitude is totally different from the characteristics of other high-ranking pets, and claims that now it's his second pet, and hopes that it will help him. After all, the full moon night is approaching. On the full moon night, while patrolling an area on top of the buildings, that guard says that he doesn't believe he was randomly assigned to patrol that area. Soon he tells someone that according to private information from the Lunar Palace, the Lunar King has already appeared, and on the full moon night, the Lunar King will certainly make a move. So the person he had mentioned asks if he really said king. Then this guy says he knows that guy is one of the best from the Black Moon sect and has been a very successful secret agent at the academy, but this time he should be careful. Then the guard says that he understands that. At least he's sharp. That guy knows the area is the closest to the Lunar King, and if he feels the slightest hint of hostility, he'll be dead. Then at that moment in Su Liang's consciousness domain, the pet space says that this is strange. He's never seen it like this before on a full moon night. Soon he realizes that the Moon in the Lake is sleeping and there doesn't seem to be anything unusual happening with it. Then the protagonist thinks that the most likely scenario is that an extremely strong beast has appeared within the academy, which caused panic among the low-ranking pets. So the protagonist tells the butterfly to stop making a scene. He'll take her to see it. The protagonist knows there's a curfew of the academy on full moon nights, but that doesn't matter to him. Considering that the incident occurred within the academy, the target must be related to the protagonist in one way or another. While opening the door of his house, the protagonist thinks that in case of danger, an empty space is much better than a closed dormitory, and it won't affect the other students. Upon stepping outside, the protagonist faces several beasts disobeying their masters, running back and forth, causing tremendous chaos. A real mess. Seeing all that mess, the protagonist wonders what's going on. He says, "It seems like Tanyan Zhuyu's prediction was right. It seems like an unknown fierce beast is coming. But is it targeting the protagonist?" The protagonist realizes that something is really strange with those beasts and asks himself again what's going on with all that commotion. After an explosion, the protagonist happily says that he doesn't think it's directed at him. That man who appeared before says that this can only be a joke with him, and it clearly seems like a low-ranking lunar rabbit, but with this size and overwhelming aura, he wonders what the hell the thing is. Hey guys, are you enjoying it so far? Leave a like to give a boost and comment what you think. If there's any story you want to see here on the channel, leave the name in the comments. I'm always watching to bring good stories. Soon, that lunar rabbit, upon seeing that man, gets furious and rushes at him, attacking. Striking with its huge paw on the ground and causing a bigger uproar, that rabbit makes houses in the surroundings feel the tremors. Soon, the protagonist thinks that these low-ranking beasts got scared and frantic from the overwhelming roar, and wonders what the hell is happening outside. Those beasts run toward the moon pavilion, but when they arrive there, they come across Aya, who immediately scolds them, claiming that it's already midnight and asks what's going on. She tells everyone to go back to their beds. Not understanding how that group of beasts stopped, the employee takes the opportunity to say that since they stopped, they should be good and asks them to please go back to their nests. Finding it strange, that employee knows that this is not the White Deer Chamber and wonders how those furious beasts became normal here. In her room, still very embarrassed by the last conversation she had with the protagonist, she thinks about what he meant when he said, "We have an agreement. If I call you and you don't show up, I'll tell everyone your secret." Soon, Aya claims that the protagonist is the Lunar King, just like the great Emperor Kang Yu. And she wonders why he would need to call her. It's good to have a reason at least. But then she thinks that maybe it's because her power hasn't reached its peak yet. So he'll need her strength to help him overcome a crisis, right? Not knowing what she's thinking and saying, Aya buries her face in the pillows and wonders if tonight he will really shout her name. Outside, while destroying everything, that rabbit notices a roar that makes him look away. Soon that man claims that the power of that rabbit is incredible and beyond his expectations. However, he thinks it seems like the rabbit is not a member of the Twin Moon sect, since it destroyed the Academy's inner courtyard like that. But after all, he claims that if the Lunar King finds out, he won't have space to retaliate, and says it seems like a wild beast that got furious under the full moon, just a false alarm. Then that man shouts at the rabbit, asking if it doesn't realize that this is the territory of the Lunar King, and says that if it alerts him, it won't even know how it died, even though it's very strong. Then that man says he advises the rabbit to retreat. Ignoring the man's words, the rabbit attacks him anyway, but soon he is defended by those two beasts who were protecting him. After absorbing all that impact, that man says the beasts did a good job. Soon that man thinks that despite its terrifying power, that beast seems incredibly slow and doesn't seem to have the intelligence of a high-ranking beast, humiliated in his thoughts. So he finds that very interesting. Since the Lunar King wasn't alerted, he's going to take a closer look at the rabbit and find out what it really is. Soon, he tells Ling Yuyu that the restrictions have been lifted and she has his permission to absorb the moonlight. After absorbing the moonlight, those whales transform into a black moonlight whale. But soon he tells Ling Yu to stop absorbing. Soon, that man reaches his limit. He knows that except for the Great Moon Emperor and the Lunar God's palace, no one can absorb the moonlight energy infinitely, or else their bodies would explode. Something important to remember. And as for the Lunar King, he's beyond common sense. So he tells the rabbit that since he became a mentor, he hasn't been able to fully unleash his powers, but now he can. And says that he's not the only one who can get furious under the full moon. Then he tells Ling Yuyu to attack that rabbit. Soon, one of the young women who is gathering the students tells everyone to hurry, and that this is the way to the shelter. Soon, the second young woman asks if a hostile force is attacking the academy. The pink-haired young woman responds to the blonde young woman that that's impossible, and points out that the Lunar King lives here, and assumes that some beast must have gone mad from absorbing too much moonlight. Then the blonde young woman says that it's possible indeed. After all, moon-type beasts are extremely dangerous under the full moon. Some of them can even defeat a mentor. After a young man passes behind the pink-haired girl, she asks that student to stop and not walk around there. But upon realizing, she notices it's the Lunar King, the legend. Soon the protagonist says that the moon is about to rise, and then he thinks that despite the fact that the only beast he can deal with in a crisis is the moon in the lake, Somehow, there's a strange feeling of confidence in his heart, which is extremely strong, especially under the full moon. The protagonist thinks that if he had to use the original owner's words, it would be something like, "The eyes of the moon are upon me." Right after attacking the rabbit, that man says that Ling Yu's attack now was relentless and claims that this must be the end. But as the dust clears, he realizes that it was actually Ling Yu who got the worst of it, and he wonders how, having gained his place in the Black Moon sect through the power of Ling Yu, he could fail to defeat a beast that went mad under the full moon. Looking from behind a house, Bai Yu says that the rabbit is very scary, causing the rabbit to glance back a little, and says that it doesn't even come close to the level of a cadet fight. Soon, Su Jing asks if this isn't absurd, and says that knowing it's scary, Bai Yu still went there to watch. Bai responds saying that the dormitory roof was torn off, and this type of incident is clear that she wants to see it with her own eyes. Then Su Jing slaps Bai's head and asks what's wrong with her. Soon, Bai wonders why that rabbit seems familiar to her. Su Jing claims that it looks like a high-ranking rabbit, doesn't it? But says that its size is very strange. Then that rabbit grabs Ling Yu with its ears and slams her to the ground, causing her to scream in pain. Soon, that man questions if the recovery rate isn't enough to repair the damage, and wonders how a mere wild beast can defeat his Ling Yu like that, and claims that he won't be merciful anymore. Soon, he orders Ling Yu to use her battle technique, Moon Devourer. Moon Devourer, target's hit will be torn apart by Ling Yu's immense and formless breath, causing intense pain and death. Small after effects, as we can see. Then Ling breaks free from the rabbit's ears and uses her technique against it. That man knows that no one has ever blocked that attack, and claims that the Moon Devourer technique is unmatched. Soon he realizes that the rabbit suffered no damage and absorbed all that impact. Then the rabbit starts channeling a battle technique, making that man wonder how such a wild beast has a battle technique, and claims that this is completely annoying. Soon, Su Jing lies on top of Bai, who asks her what Su Jing is doing. Then Su Jing tells her to shut up and be quiet. Soon, Su Jing calls the Silver Moon Fox. Soon, the fox protects the girls with its tails, an exotic defense method. After channeling for a while, that rabbit roars in a way that causes an explosion, reaching kilometers away, destroying almost all the houses around. After destroying almost everything and finishing off Ling Yu, the rabbit faces Su Jing and Bai Yu. Su Jing tells Bai that no wonder they survived, since Bai had also summoned her lunar beast. Furious, Bai Yu's lunar beast wants to attack the rabbit, but is soon stopped by her saying that it's fine and asking the beast not to draw the rabbit's attention. But soon they realize that the rabbit had already drawn its attention, and say that now they're finished. Soon the rabbit stands still, looking at them without making any movement. Then Su Jing wonders why it stopped moving suddenly. Soon she realizes that the giant rabbit is looking at Bai Yu's face. After ignoring the girls, the rabbit grabs the tutor who was battling with it earlier. Soon, Su Jing says that she can't believe he's still breathing after that rabbit's attack. Then that tutor calls the rabbit a bitch, and claims that she isn't even a high-ranking one, is she? And yet he asks the rabbit if it thinks it will get away with that. Then the rabbit throws the tutor to the ground and walks towards him with the intention of stepping on him and killing him. Bai Yu says that man is going to die, and that she must make Xiaobai stop. Soon, Su Jing tells Bai not to be ridiculous, and that she herself knows Bai can't stop that monster, at least theoretically. She says that Xiaobai is a high-level pet, and once a pet beast is killed in battle, its loyalty will decrease when revived, and that they can't risk that. Then Bai asks, well, are we just going to stand here and let him die? And says it's better to lose the loyalty than to let someone die. With no choice, Su Jing says it's fine, and that they must try, and tells Bai to do her best and not try to be a hero. Going towards the rabbit, Bai Yu is stopped by the Lunar King, who then surprises her by being there, and then asks them to be quiet, and says that this is not their fight, and claims that the moonlight is starting to converge. As he approaches the rabbit, the protagonist maintains a glow around him that shows aspects of the moon around him. Soon, Bai Yu says that the protagonist is so bright, and wonders if at that level he can still be considered human. Close to the rabbit, the protagonist thinks that its size and shape, none of them compare to the supreme beasts that are currently in the world, so he can only think of one possibility. About 10 minutes ago, the protagonist was thinking that even if it's reckless, somehow he feels full of confidence. However, it is simply impossible for him to defeat that beast. He knows that even a high-ranking beast of a 4-star instructor was instantly defeated. There's no way his moon in the lake and his flash butterfly can harm it. The protagonist knows that if he wants to use the lunar tome to check its ranking, he must touch it. but the protagonist can't do that now. It would be funny to see him try, and wonders what he should do. Should he just give up? Soon he realizes that the rabbit is not attacking Bai and Su Ling. He then thinks that it's impossible for a high-ranking beast to be berserk and rational at the same time. So there's only one possibility left. On the ground, that tutor can't believe the Lunar King is near him. Pleased, he wonders if he's finally about to witness the Lunar King's favorite beast, and says that the information about the Lunar King's favorite beasts will cause a great sensation, and claims that he's the only one who can see this firsthand. Soon, Xiao Bai picks up the tutor and places him on its back. While Bai says that Xiao Bei did a good job, Su Jing tells him to hurry up and says that they should retreat while they still can. Better than risking it later, that tutor asks what they are doing and tells the girls not to take him with them, and asks them to stop rescuing him. Down below, the protagonist says that a beast that gets furious on the full moon night can't be rational, which means that the beast isn't furious at all. Then the protagonist claims that the rabbit is simply acting on instinct, right? And says that only low-level beasts rely on instinct, so there's no need to guess the truth anymore. Soon, the protagonist reaches out to the rabbit and asks it if it's looking for him. Watching from a distance, Su Jing asks the protagonist what he's doing. Soon, Bai screams at the protagonist to be careful. While the rabbit is about to attack the protagonist, Bai claims that he didn't even summon any of his favorite beasts to ward off the rabbit, and that he will be crushed into pulp. Just as he's about to be attacked, the moon in the lake appears and hugs the protagonist from behind, making everyone wonder what's going on. The tutor claims that being ancient, mysterious, and unknown, there's no doubt that this is the one mentioned in the internal intelligence of the Black Moon cult. Then the protagonist realizes that the Emperor has left, and Su knows that the bet was correct, that the moon in the lake managed to block the attack successfully. But the protagonist knows that this attack is too powerful for even the moon in the lake to withstand for a second. Really powerful, this one. However, the protagonist knows that there's no need to fight anymore. After seeing its peaceful form, the protagonist remembers that it's the little rabbit he had found early that day. Then the protagonist claims that he was right. The big rabbit didn't attack Ju Xing and Bai because it felt a sense of familiarity. Soon, that rabbit kneels before the protagonist, who then touches his big ear, saying that those who do not have a lunar physique can only absorb the power of the moon indefinitely during the full moon, and that's why the big rabbit desires the moon so much. Surprised, the protagonist claims that this is surprisingly amazing. The rabbit forced itself to grow to the point of being able to defeat a high-level favorite beast. 3 women arrive at the scene and ask what is happening and if they arrived too late. On the ground, the tutor says that they are not late, but their arrival doesn't matter. Then one of the women asks what the tutor means by that. He then says that the Lunar King was disturbed and claims that they will all die. After realizing that reinforcements have arrived, the protagonist knows that he can't delay this anymore, so he asks the rabbit again if it's there for him. Soon, the rabbit kneels before the protagonist, making everyone there wonder how this is possible. One can perfectly understand the reason for the surprise. Then the protagonist tells the big rabbit that seeing its unwavering devotion to the moon, he is impressed by its will. Therefore, the protagonist grants the moon that the rabbit desires so much, and says that he will meet the rabbit where they first met. After hearing what the protagonist said, the rabbit turns its back on him and leaves. Furious, the tutor knows he was beaten to near death and didn't even see the protagonist's favorite beasts. Soon he asks what that is and calls the protagonist to clarify, and says that that beast attacked the protagonist. How can he tolerate leaving? Looking back with his glowing lunar eyes, the protagonist asks if the tutor thinks that was really an attack. Startled to see the protagonist's eyes, the tutor wonders how his eyes could be like that as the half-moon's shape in his eyes changed to the shape of an incomparable full moon. Such a beautiful image. Inside, the tutor asks the black whale what it has witnessed many times. Soon, the tutor asks the black whale to answer him if it is listening. Remembering those scenes, the tutor recalls the protagonist's moon in the lake, his black whale that was defeated by the beast, and the deep gaze of the protagonist. Then the tutor says that he saw the Emperor, and that the protagonist was too much. Soon, he thinks he needs to end things for today, and continuing would be a burden for him, and says to the black whale that last night the crescent moon submerged star appeared in the northern region, and also thinks that the vice leader of the 3rd Division of the Black Moon cult is on his way to the north, so he will continue acting as an internal agent for now, and that he must monitor the movements of the Lunar King as closely as possible and report them regularly. Then the tutor wakes up in the Academy's medical room and realizes that all of that was a nightmare, but soon realizes that it wasn't a nightmare, and that this is the favorite beast of high-ranking officials, the Pact of the Moon and Dreams. It's incredible that everyone has a favorite thing, and that it was the superiors giving him orders. He knows that the crescent moon of the submerged star appeared in the northern region and a vice director is arriving, and wonders who will deal with the Lunar King's beast. In his room, the protagonist wakes up and realizes that the rabbit is in his bed, but in its peaceful form. Then he remembers that he made a pact with the rabbit. The night before, at the meeting point with the rabbit, the protagonist thinks about what he had said and claims that the rabbit probably understands, right? Upon arriving there, the protagonist finds that the rabbit is indeed there waiting for him. Soon, the Lunar King thinks that he just made a great farce in front of everyone, and claims that if they discover that the Lunar King is weak, they will immediately get angry, and he will be dead. So the protagonist knows it's better to be safe than sorry and make the contract in a place where no one is around. He then tells the Lunar Rabbit to make a pact with him. Then the protagonist looks at the beast panel that shows his pacts and realizes that he now has 3 beasts. Seeing that panel, the protagonist thinks he should say that he really doesn't resemble the Lunar King at all. He thinks that although a low-rank lunar rabbit on the surface can crush a high-rank favorite beast during a full moon night, he just wants to know if there is a limit and if he can reach a higher level, while thinking that maybe he'll reach the tan. The protagonist realizes that the little rabbit is hugging his foot. Soon, he puts that thought aside and says that he thinks he'll go back to the moon pavilion again so Tanya and Zhuyu can check the lunar rabbit. Heading toward the pavilion, the protagonist wonders what's happening there to have such a commotion, and soon realizes that this movement doesn't seem to have been triggered by the incident yesterday. Soon, the protagonist finds Sujing talking to Bai Yue, saying that there really is a supreme-class lunar-type wild pet beast that has arrived in the northern domain, and it's not far from the academy. Soon, Bai asks Sujing if she isn't thinking of going there and trying to make a pact, is she? Sujing then says it doesn't hurt to try, and claims, what if it works? Hearing that conversation from a distance, the protagonist says that a supreme-class wild adult favored beast wouldn't just be visiting randomly. Soon, he takes his phone and searches. Supreme-class beast arriving in the northern region. After searching, the protagonist sees that the supreme-class pet beast sinking star crescent moon descended upon the northern region early this morning. Hundreds of kilometers around the area were blocked by the Lunar Clan forces. A crowd of more than hundreds of thousands gathered to watch the event. Curiosity struck. It's shown that the sinking star crescent moon is the only type of supreme wild weapon in the lunar series. Due to the lack of an appropriate beastmaster, it is asleep, and even Emperor Kang Yu and the 10 pillars of the Moon God Palace couldn't awaken it. But yesterday, the crescent moon of the sinking star really woke up and traveled to the northern region. Because of this, there is no force that doesn't associate this with the existence of the Lunar King Su Liang. Continuing on his path, the protagonist thinks that almost all the forces think the crescent moon of the sinking star is there for him. While observing the protagonist from a distance, 2 people are watching him to see what he's doing, so they don't believe that the Lunar King is ignoring the sinking star crescent moon. How dare he? Soon, the protagonist thinks that although it's really tempting to try to subdue it, he wonders if he should try to subdue the sinking star crescent moon in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And if he doesn't have the strength to handle it, he will die on the spot. But for precaution, it's better not to risk it. He thinks that not to mention that there's something much more beautiful and adorable right around the corner. Then he enters the white-flowered deer's lair, and the protagonist tells her that it's been a long time since he last saw her. Soon he thinks, why bother going so far from home when there are closer options? Then the deer asks what the protagonist is doing there. He says that the crescent moon of the sinking star has appeared, and asks if she doesn't want to take a look. After realizing that she already knew about it, the protagonist asks if even she, a fanatic for surfing, already knows about it. The deer says that she felt it long before the news hit the web, and asks the protagonist if he doesn't think it will be bad for him if someone else subjugates it. The protagonist says that they still don't understand and claims that something you can only see from a distance isn't as cute as a pet, leaving Aya completely confused. Soon, the protagonist shows a symbol of his appreciation for her. Aya asks what kind of sign of thanks that is. He then thinks that it was only because of Aya's reminder that he managed to bring down the lunar rabbit. But for the sake of his style, he'd rather not say that, so he doesn't lose his cool either. A certain deer, who has always been fed like a mid-level favorite beast, asks if that isn't a special food for a supreme rank, and questions if that isn't very expensive. The protagonist says it's fine, and if she likes it, he'll bring more tomorrow. Anyway, the protagonist still has a few thousand of them in his favorite beast space, courtesy of the Twin Moons sect. After taking and storing what the protagonist gave her, she asks Aya what's wrong and why she's not eating. She replies no, and that, of course, she must save snacks to watch movies and read novels. Then the protagonist says it's fine, and that he's leaving now, because if he stays too long, could raise suspicions about Aya's identity. Soon, the protagonist realizes there's another way to contact her. So Aiki proposes to Aya to add him as a friend on the social network. Soon, she adds the protagonist. Then he notices that in her profile picture, there's Aya's real identity. While looking at her picture, the protagonist thinks about the promise of Clouds and Moon, the founder of a Moonlight Beast Academy hundreds of years ago. He wonders if that legendary Imperial Beast is her ancestor. Right. Just trying to confirm, really? And also wonders if the Moon Chaser can become like that when transforming into a human form. Noticing that the protagonist is standing there observing something, Aya asks if something's wrong. The protagonist says it's nothing and that he's going home, claiming he'll return tomorrow. As the protagonist says goodbye to her, Aya thinks about what nonsense she's been thinking and thinks that obviously the crescent moon of the sinking star has already appeared, but he doesn't care at all about it and even came there to look for her. Soon, Aya realizes she got it. And that movement is called Feigning Retreat to Lure the Enemy, and claims that the protagonist is trying to deceive her to make her join the Twin Moons sect. Thinking that the king is clever, Aya says she has seen through his scheme, but she thinks about what the protagonist said about coming back tomorrow to visit her. 3 days passed, but the Lunar King still hadn't paid attention to the crescent moon of the sinking star, nor had the Twin Moons sect taken any action. As a result, the situation in the Northern Territory became more and more obscure and confusing, going from bad to worse. Furious, the vice president of Moonlight Beast Academy, Aoi Kizuraji, shouts for everyone to stop playing around, and says she's only sending them to broaden their horizons and questions if they really think they can subdue the sinking star crescent moon, and tells those who registered that basic personal security will be guaranteed. For those who didn't register, any consequences will be their full responsibility, and wonders why she has to stay there and be responsible for the cadet's security. Soon, Aoi notices that the Black Whale Master is approaching. She then asks him what he's doing there instead of resting and recovering. He tells Aoi that he's taking care of it, and that he already asked the healer to revive his pet beast. No problems at all. Observing the master to see if he's truly okay, Aoi says that since he put it that way, she'll leave it with him. Soon, the student approaches the Black Whale Master and asks if he's feeling okay or unwell. He quickly responds that he's fine. Then he thinks that the person is already there, and thinks that although he's never met him, he's certain that the Honored One will notify him somehow. After that young woman signs, the Black Whale Master asks the next person to step forward. The line essentially moves forward. He then tells the student to write her name, school number, and star ranking on the paper. After she writes it, the Black Whale Master notices a strange snake mark on the hand of that student and realizes that it's surprisingly from that person. That student from the Central Nine Hells region, Yellow Springs Creek Path Water Sect, thinks that then this is the favored beast known for cutting stars in the past, and claims that her aura is truly dazzling, and says that today she witnessed this, and it's really impressive. That man from the northern region, Moonlight Academy Imperial, asks that woman if she understands now, and says that if a beast that's not from the moon enters the boundary, it will be repelled, and if a beastmaster enters recklessly, it's the same as suicide. You step in, you die, kid. Soon, a woman from the northern region, Spiritual Moon Sex, says that someone who's not of the Moonlight type dares to dream of subjugating the crescent moon of the sinking star. Then, another woman, also from the northern region, but from the Fallen Eclipse sect, says that that dream is impossible. That first woman says she understands now, and claims she will order all the sect disciples to return, but she will remain there, and says she wants to see which idiots will be so confident to enter and find their own death. That woman from the Spiritual Moon sect finds that woman very repulsive, and says that she's afraid of death, but still wants to see others suffer. Then the other woman from the Fallen Eclipse sect says that if it weren't for the power of the Yellow Springs path, she wouldn't have allowed her to come here and say that. That man says it's fine, because the situation is urgent, and they must choose who will enter. First of all, you must be a beastmaster who has all of their favorite beasts of lunar origin, so they don't cause a negative reaction. Secondly, bringing a supreme-level pet beast would make the crescent moon of the sinking star immediately resist its own kind, and says that's right, only favored beasts below the supreme level can enter. Soon, that red-haired woman claims that's why the Lunar King hasn't gone there. The man says maybe, but regardless, he's interrupted by a woman coming up behind him and claims that they are here. After turning around and facing several cadets, the man fears that the cadets will suffer many casualties. Not surprising at all. Soon, that red-haired woman tells the cadets that they are about to enter the domain of the sunken star crescent moon, and says that first, when the crescent moon of the sinking star is asleep, it's practically invincible. Second, when it awakens, it will unleash an indiscriminate cutting attack that will instantly disintegrate everything in its path. Lying down, the protagonist thinks that although Aya has reason in life, she is completely incapable of communication. Through messages, Aya says that at that time even Emperor Kangyu and the Moon Goddess Palace returned defeated, and says that no matter who goes, it will be useless. Soon, the protagonist claims that all Aya does is sleep and hit people, and questions if all supreme tanks are this brutal. Still through messages, the protagonist asks if there wasn't a brief period when she stayed awake. Aya says yes, but maybe not by her own will, and this time she went to sleep because she felt an opportunity to evolve, and asked the protagonist if he's sure he doesn't want to go. Lying on his bed, the protagonist wonders what something like subjugating the crescent moon of the sinking star has to do with him, and he knows that the illustrious Lunar King was accidentally killed by the unconscious attack of a supreme-ranked favorite beast. What a bestial accident this is. After thinking for a while, the protagonist says that this is already the height of historical irony. Grabbing his phone, he says maybe, going back outside, that woman with the snake mark on her hand thinks that surprisingly, the Lunar King hasn't appeared. And if it's you, you must have a way to subjugate the crescent moon of the sinking star. While walking, that woman thinks that as soon as she obtains the sinking star crescent moon, she will kill all the beastmasters in the area and make sure no information leaks. Soon, she picks up her phone and wonders if the intelligence has arrived at that moment. After observing, that woman realizes that the protagonist really turned on the locator, and she realizes he's moving toward the Moonvale mountain range. She wonders why right now. Then that red-haired woman asks the mysterious woman what she's doing playing with her phone in a moment like this. Calling her distracted, she asks if the young woman wants to die there. Soon, that mysterious woman apologizes to the red-haired woman, who then says that if she continues being so uneasy, it's better to go back. Furious, that woman thinks how a brat dares to lecture her, and claims that when she has the sinking star crescent moon, she will certainly torture her to the point that she'll wish she were dead. Not something very pleasant to hear. Soon, that red-haired young woman explains to the students that for this operation, each one of them will receive a teleportation stone, and at the moment they crush it, they will be teleported out. She claims that when the students notice that the crescent moon of the sinking star is starting to wake up, they should crush it immediately. Otherwise, they will certainly die inside. Soon, that strange woman claims that the protagonist will arrive there soon. From afar, the blue woman wonders if they really think a beastmaster of 1 or 2 stars can subjugate the sinking star crescent moon, and claims that even the beastmaster of 8 stars, Emperor Kangyu, failed to do it. The guy only had one mission. That blue woman realizes that the mysterious woman is going with the cadets. After a quick exchange of glances, that blue woman is shocked and wonders what the hell that look was, and questions what the beastmaster level of that person is. She wonders if there really is such a monster hidden in the Moonlight Beastmaster Academy. After passing that green wall, that mysterious woman thinks the protagonist will soon arrive at the Moonvale mountain range, and before that happens, she needs to figure out the new mechanics of the sinking stellar crescent. She thinks Silent Libra block the entrance, and when the Lunar King approaches, seal your emperor. That blue woman asks Vice President Ru Yu what all this on and 2-star trash is about, and says that she fears the Lunar King hasn't appeared because he knows that the sinking star crescent moon can't be subjugated, right? And tells Ryu that knowing this, she's still sending people there, and says that her purpose can't just be to let the students see the beauty of a supreme-ranked favorite beast, right? There must be more to it. Soon, Ryu says that she's the one out of line. Going there despite the difference in elements, Ryu questions if she's there to laugh at Ryu or really thinks she can subjugate a supreme-level beast of a different element. Speechless, that blue woman wonders what's going on, and says that Ryu seems to not know about that strange dark-haired woman with a snake mark on her hand. When that woman is about to respond to Ryu, she and everyone there are surprised by the protagonist's arrival, commanding respect. Soon, Ryu asks the protagonist if he's really there to subjugate the sinking star crescent moon. Then those 2 young women ask, what if the Emperor of the Lunar King scares the sinking star crescent moon? Ryu claims that those girls are so ignorant, and says that the fact that the Lunar King is there means he's sure that even if he doesn't release the Emperor, he will be able to make the sinking star crescent moon submit to him. Passing through all those young women silently, the protagonist thinks that actually it's pretty simple. As soon as he touches the body of the sinking star crescent moon, he can unlock the icon of the lunar Tom. Then it will be easier for him to understand the mechanism and reasons for the awakening of the crescent moon of the sinking star. Soon, he thinks that maybe he will even be able to dominate it. Go for it. Soon, the protagonist tells everyone to stay hidden and follows orders. But before entering that portal, the protagonist grabs the lunar book and notices there is information about Silent Libra. With supreme purity rank and battle skills, justice, silence, an extremely rare beast of supreme level and with a purity attribute without attacks and with a large number of restrictive battle techniques, it must be attached to someone stronger to survive. Balance, Only a Supreme-class favorite beast can attack it, and a Beastmaster who enters the Silent Libra realm cannot summon a favorite beast of Emperor class. Silence. Able to completely hide its presence from the strongest, even Emperor-rank favorite beasts cannot detect it. Then the protagonist stops in front of that green portal, making everyone there wonder what the protagonist is doing, and why he suddenly stopped there. While he grabs his phone to research, Ryu calls the protagonist, but she's soon surprised by him asking how she can let those small insects from the Black Moon cult enter so easily. This causes everyone to be surprised upon hearing about the Black Moon cult. Then the protagonist says that from now on, this place is under the control of the Twin Moons sect, and no one is allowed to enter. And he says he will take care of the rest personally. Put his foot down. Outside, everyone wonders about the Black Moon cult. Then that blue woman understands that the scary woman is one of the Beastmasters of the Black Moon cult. Soon, that blonde woman from the northern region, Spiritual Moon sect, claims that they weren't expelled from the northern region by the Twin Moons sect and asks if they return to the sinking star crescent moon. Then that red-haired woman from the Fallen Eclipse sect claims that the protagonist had said they were just insects and wonders what will happen to the cadets. Soon, Ryu says that with the teleportation stone, it should be fine. Still outside, the protagonist thinks that Silent Libra is specialized for use against Emperor-class rankings and wonders if the Black Moon cult really thinks he has an Emperor, and knows that this means that upon entering, it's very likely there will be more than one supreme-ranked favorite beast he will have to deal with. The protagonist knows that this will be the most dangerous situation he's ever faced in his life, and if it weren't for him when he first crossed, he wouldn't have had the courage to enter. But now, it's hard to say. So he enters the portal. Outside, everyone is impressed by the imposing aura the protagonist has. Seeing that the protagonist really entered that portal, the Black Whale Master says that the remnants of the Black Moon cult are inside and claims that they must enter and help. After all, the Lunar King is also one of their cadets. Ryu says that this seems reasonable. Soon, that blonde man asks what they should do, enter and help. Then the Master says no, and claims that the combined strength of all of them will awaken the sinking star crescent moon. And soon says that their favorite beasts have just been revived and are still very weak, so he will go in alone, no problem, because he's the guy. Those two young women say that with that appearance, and wonder if the Black Whale Master is really reliable to do that task. Thinking, Ryu wonders why that guy is so strange today. Correcting what he wanted to say, he's not a member of the Twin Moons sect, is he? And wonders why he's so concerned about the safety of the Lunar King. Heading toward the portal to enter it, the Black Whale Master, upon touching it, is surprised by something that falls right in front of him. After the dust settles, he comes face to face with a woman who he immediately asks if that old man hasn't gone too far with his fantasies. Then that woman tells the Black Whale Master that even if all his beasts were at their peak, they wouldn't have a chance to awaken the crescent moon of the sinking star. After noticing the tattoo on that girl's leg, the Black Whale Master realizes that she's one of the 12 disciples of the moon from the Twin Moons sect, and she's also the 7th in line. He then thinks that the Serpent Throne is in trouble. What a quick thought, right? Soon that woman asks everyone if they didn't hear the protagonist's orders, and from now on, that area is under the control of the Twin Moons sect. The Black Whale Master then thinks that he doesn't believe she noticed the Silent Libra and doesn't seem to have any intention of entering. But there's still a chance things will change. Inside the sinking star crescent moon realm, Silent Libra realizes that more than 10 minutes have passed, and they still haven't found the sinking star crescent moon, and notices that the trash that came with her has already gone. She knows that low-ranked beasts cannot be released in the supreme-ranked domain, and knows that those brats must have been scared and crushed the teleportation stone. Continuing her path, Silent Libra senses the unmistakable aura of a very powerful favorite beast. She remembered right away. Then she quickly finds the sinking star, and as expected from a supreme-level weapon, it is absolutely magnificent. Soon, she asks the sinking star to go with her because she knows what it wants. Then she claims that the sinking star rejected Emperor Kang Yu and the moon goddess from the Moon Goddess Palace because they were born with emperors. So as a proud weapon, it couldn't stand the feeling of not being appreciated, right? She says she might not be as good as them, but claims that she's still a 6-star Beastmaster. Then she says she will never treat the sinking star badly. Trying to grab the sinking star, Silent Libra says, "Stinking star crescent moon, become mine." And that was today's story. If you liked it, leave a like to give a little support, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Don't forget to comment what you thought and which story you want to see here. I'll always be answering the comments, and the best stories you send, I'll bring here. See you in the next videos.